Midnight fell over the strict HOA neighborhood like a heavy blanket, cold and unforgiving. The rain poured without mercy, washing the clean streets the HOA was so proud of. Street lamps flickered in the storm, and the sound of thunder cracked across the sky like the anger of the world itself. But nothing was louder than the silent heartbreak of one woman walking alone. Mira Hale moved through the storm barefoot, her feet numb from the cold pavement, her thin dress soaked and clinging to her trembling body. She carried only a small cloth bag, one she grabbed in panic while being shoved out of her own house. Her hair stuck to her face. Her eyes were red from crying. Her breaths were short and shaky. HOA security cameras tracked her every step, but nobody came out. Nobody helped. In this neighborhood, rules were more important than people. Peer perfect. Hide your pain. Never interfere. Even tonight, when everyone saw the cruel scene, no one stepped forward. Her husband, Damien Hale, wealthy, proud, obsessed with status, had dragged her by the arm, yelling so loud that even the rain couldn't hide his voice. "You ruined my bloodline," he shouted. "You can't give me a child. You're useless." Mira had begged him to stop, but he didn't listen. He never listened. He shoved her outside like she was trash. And then he locked the door. The neighbors watched from behind their blinds, eyes full of gossip instead of sympathy. HOA rules taught them to stay quiet, stay clean, stay loyal to the board. Helping Mira meant going against Damien, a man with power. So they pretended not to see. The rain washed away her tears, but the pain stayed inside her like a heavy stone. Her hands shook as she wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stay warm. Every part of her body felt abandoned. Her heart, her marriage, her dignity, her home. She walked until she couldn't take another step, then sank behind the community park wall. The cold ground chilled her bones, but she didn't move. She hugged her knees and cried silently, not wanting anyone to hear her. She had no place to go, no family, no friend. Her entire life had been inside the house she just lost. She tried to breathe, but each breath felt like a cut. Every memory of Damien, every cruel word, every moment she had hoped for a child replayed inside her head until she felt like she was drowning in her own thoughts. She didn't notice the headlights approaching through the storm. A black SUV slowed down, its wipers struggling against the heavy rain. The driver saw something unusual. A figure curled near the park wall. The car stopped. The engine hummed quietly. Inside sat Adrian Cross, a powerful CEO known across the city. But unlike other rich men in the neighborhood, his face carried quiet sadness instead of pride. His hair was wet from stepping out earlier for a meeting, and his eyes looked tired. Tired in a way that came from the soul, not the body. In the back seat, his 6-year-old son, Evan, slept peacefully with a small blanket tucked around him. Adrian stared at Mira for a long moment. She didn't see him. She was too lost in her pain. Something in Adrian's chest tightened. He stepped out of the car slowly, letting the rain fall over him without caring. His footsteps were quiet, gentle. He didn't want to frighten her. But when he got close enough, Mira flinched, her body shrinking away from him like a terrified animal. Adrian lowered himself to one knee beside her, moving with calm, respectful slowness. He removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. The warmth made her gasp softly, but she didn't lift her head. She was afraid to look up, afraid it might be Damien again, afraid it might be another person ready to judge her. Adrian spoke in a soft voice, one usually reserved only for his son. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "Please, look at me." Mira hesitated, then slowly lifted her eyes. And she saw a man she had never seen before. Not cruel, not cold, not angry, just human. Adrian's eyes softened when he met her gaze. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, her hair dripping with rain. The pain in her eyes hit him harder than he expected. He whispered, "What happened?" Mira shook her head, unable to speak. She didn't want to open the wound. She didn't trust anyone anymore. Adrian didn't pressure her. He simply waited, giving her space to breathe. Then Myra's eyes drifted to the car, and she saw the small boy sleeping in the back seat. His peaceful face, his little hands holding a stuffed toy. Something inside her cracked open. A part of her heart she thought was dead, moved. She took a shaky breath and whispered, voice breaking like shattered glass, "My husband threw me out." Adrian listened silently, giving her the dignity no one else gave her. "Because I can't." Her voice faded. She looked down at her hands. The rain hid her tears, but not her pain. Adrian leaned slightly closer, his voice gentle like he was afraid to break her with a wrong word. "You can't what?" Mira swallowed hard. Then she said the truth she had carried like a secret punishment for years. "I can't give him a child." The words echoed in the storm. Adrian felt his heart drop. He didn't look at her with pity. He didn't judge her. He didn't blame her. His face simply filled with quiet understanding. A deep, personal understanding. Mira noticed it. Why did he look like he had felt this pain before? Why did his eyes soften like he knew the weight of her words? Rain poured harder, but for a moment the world felt still. Adrian stared at her, really stared at her, and something shifted between them. A connection formed not from romance or beauty, but from shared pain. From broken hearts recognizing each other in the dark. Then he said 4 words that made Myra's breath stop. 4 words she never expected to hear. 4 words that didn't judge her, didn't reject her, didn't blame her. "Mira, come with me." She froze. Her heartbeat stuttered. Her lips parted in shock. She looked at him as if he had spoken something impossible. No one had ever offered her anything except blame. Why would this man, a CEO, a single dad, a stranger, ask her to come with him? She whispered, voice barely a breath. "Why? Why me? Why help me? Why care?" Adrian lowered his gaze for a moment, rain sliding down his face, mixing with something like emotion in his eyes. "Because," he said softly, "no one deserves to be thrown away." Mira stared at him, stunned. No cruelty, no judgment, no coldness. Just a man offering kindness in a world that forgot what kindness was. She looked at the sleeping child again. A safe face. A warm home in the car. A man who didn't look at her like she was broken. Adrian extended his hand slowly, waiting. Not forcing. Not demanding. Waiting. "Come with me," he repeated, softer this time. Myra's breath trembled. Her world had collapsed only minutes ago. But now, something new appeared. A door. A chance. A stranger offering her more humanity than her own husband ever had. She hesitated for a long moment, then her fingers moved. Slowly, carefully, fearfully, she placed her hand in his. And the moment she did, something in her life shifted. Something deep. Something she didn't understand yet. Something Adrian didn't expect either. The storm raged. The night grew darker. But inside the car, a new beginning quietly started. And the night was only the beginning. Adrian gently helped Mira into the SUV, careful not to startle her, careful not to make her feel like a burden. She sat in the passenger seat silently, her wet dress sticking to her skin as she pulled his coat tighter around herself. She didn't speak. She didn't even breathe properly. Her hands shook so much she hid them under the coat, hoping he wouldn't notice. She kept her gaze lowered, afraid that if she looked at him, she would break all over again. Adrian checked on his sleeping son in the back seat before starting the car. The rain thundered loudly on the roof, but inside the car there was a soft warmth. A warmth Mira hadn't felt in years. The engine hummed, the heater slowly filled the car, and for the first time since being thrown out, Mira felt her body stop shivering. But her heart didn't stop shaking. Not even for a second. Adrian didn't rush her, didn't ask questions, didn't force conversation. He simply drove with a calm presence that felt unreal. So different from her husband's shouting, slamming doors, and insults. Mira kept watching his hands on the steering wheel. They were steady, gentle. Not the hands of a man who had ever thrown someone out in the rain. His phone vibrated once, but he didn't check it. He focused on the road like she was the only responsibility he had tonight. After a long moment, he spoke softly, his voice like warm tea in winter. Are you cold? Mira hesitated, then shook her head. No, I'm fine. But her voice betrayed her. Adrian didn't comment. He simply reached behind his seat and pulled a soft blanket forward. He placed it near her without touching her. If you need it, he said gently. She whispered, thank you, barely audible. The rest of the ride was quiet. Not awkward, just full of heavy emotions that neither of them knew how to express. When they reached his home, Myra's eyes widened slightly. It wasn't like the other houses in the HOA, full of cold perfection and fake pride. Adrian's home felt real. A warm porch light, a small garden with toys scattered around, curtains half open. A home where life existed, not rules. Adrian carried his sleeping son carefully, supporting the boy's head with practiced tenderness. Mira watched him and felt something unfamiliar in her chest. An ache, but a warm one. The ache of seeing something she always wanted, and had been blamed for not giving. Family. A home. A child held with love. A man who cared quietly. As she followed him inside, Mira hesitated near the door. Her feet refused to move further into a home she didn't deserve. Adrian noticed. He paused halfway up the stairs. Come in, he said softly. You're safe here. The word safe hit her so deeply she almost cried again. Safe. Something she hadn't felt in years. She stepped inside slowly. The warmth of the house wrapped around her like a blanket. Soft lights. A clean living room. A child's drawing taped on the wall. A small picture frame on a table, Adrian holding baby Evan, and the other side of the frame showing a woman's face blurred out or torn away. Mira paused. Her heart tightened. She wondered what happened to his wife. Did she die? Leave? Or was there a story behind that missing face? Adrian laid Evan gently on the couch, covering him with the same blanket he carried everywhere. The boy curled into it instinctively. Mira stared, her chest heavy with envy and longing and grief. Adrian turned back to her, his hair still wet, his shirt soaked from the rain. His tie hung loose around his neck, making him look less like a CEO and more like a tired father who carried too much in silence. You should sit, he said gently. I'll bring you something warm. Mira nodded and lowered herself into a chair. Her legs felt weak. Her heart felt weaker. Adrian disappeared into the kitchen. She heard sounds of boiling water, cupboard doors opening, footsteps moving gently instead of angrily like Damien's used to. When Adrian returned, he handed her a cup of warm tea. She touched it carefully, feeling the heat seep into her numb fingers. He sat across from her, keeping distance so she wouldn't feel cornered. They stayed silent for another moment, listening to the soft rain hitting the windows. Mira finally whispered, You didn't have to help me. Adrian looked at her with gentle seriousness. Yes, I did. She frowned, confused. Why? Adrian looked down for a moment, like he was swallowing something painful. Because no one helped me when I needed it. Mira blinked. His voice had changed, softer, sadder, full of a quiet ache she didn't understand yet. She whispered, What happened to you? Adrian leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting to the picture on the table, the torn one. My wife left, he said quietly. Myra's breath caught. I'm sorry. Adrian shook his head. Don't be. She left the day Evan was born. Mira felt shock spread through her chest. The day he was born? Adrian nodded slowly, eyes darkening. She couldn't handle the responsibility. She wasn't ready to be a mother. She didn't want a child. Mira stared at him, stunned. A man abandoned by his wife. A man raising a child alone. A man who knew the pain of losing family. Mira whispered, So you've been alone all this time? Adrian gave a small smile, sad but brave. Yes, just me and Evan. Mira lowered her gaze. She felt a strange bond forming between their pains. Two different heartbreaks, but the same loneliness. Same abandonment. Same feeling of being unwanted. Adrian took a breath and said something that made her chest tighten. Pain recognizes pain, Mira. Maybe that's why I stopped the car tonight. Myra's eyes filled again, her hand gripping the warm cup tighter. He understood her pain without her explaining it. He saw her without needing her story. He was gentle without expecting anything back. No man had treated her like this. Not in years. Not ever. Mira looked up slowly. "Why did you ask me to come with you?" Adrian held her gaze steady and kind. "Because you didn't deserve what he did to you. You didn't deserve to be thrown out like you're nothing." Myra's lips quivered. No one had ever defended her like this. Not even once. Adrian's voice softened even more. "And because no woman deserves to cry alone in the rain." Myra's tears finally spilled, silent and warm, rolling down her cheeks as she tried to hide them. Adrian didn't reach out. He didn't touch her. He let her cry without embarrassment, without rush, without judgment. For the first time in years, someone let her fall apart safely. She whispered through her tears, "Damien said I ruined his life." Adrian's jaw tightened. "No, he ruined yours." Mira shook her head helplessly. "I tried so hard, for so long. But he hated me for something I couldn't control." Adrian leaned forward, his voice now firm but gentle. "You didn't deserve any of it." Mira cried harder, holding his coat tighter around herself. Adrian watched her with a heavy heart, understanding every tear she shed. He whispered, "You are not broken, Mira. He made you believe that, but you're not." Mira closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the tea and Adrian's words calm the storm inside her. For the first time since being thrown out, she didn't feel worthless. For the first time in years, she felt seen. A long silence passed. Not empty, just full of unspoken emotions. Then Adrian said softly, "You can stay here tonight. No pressure. No questions. No expectations." Mira looked up, fear and hope mixing in her eyes. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Adrian looked at her with the saddest smile she had ever seen. "Because I know what it's like to come home to an empty heart." Mira felt something inside her shift. Something fragile. Something warm. Something dangerous. Tonight, for the first time in her life, she felt safe in the presence of a man. But she didn't know that this night was only the start of everything that would change. Outside, the storm finally began to quiet. Inside, two broken hearts quietly remembered how to beat again. And they didn't even know it yet. Their lives had already started intertwining. Morning light leaked into Adrian's home softly, but Mira didn't feel its warmth. She woke up slowly on the edge of the guest bed, still wrapped in the blanket Adrian gave her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair messy, her heart exhausted. For a moment she forgot where she was, until she heard soft footsteps outside the door. A child's voice. "Dad? Where's the lady from last night?" Mira stiffened. She wasn't ready to face anyone. She didn't belong here. She shouldn't stay. She quietly folded the blanket, placed it neatly, and sat on the bed with her hands clenched. She didn't know what to do. Leave? Stay? Thank him? Apologize? Her thoughts were a tangled mess. She heard Adrian's calm voice outside. "She's resting. Be gentle when you talk to her." Evan giggled softly. "Okay." Mira felt her chest tighten. How dare her heart feel something? She had just lost everything. Yet here she was, feeling safe in a stranger's house. Before she could gather courage to stand, she heard another sound. A sharp knock on the front door. Hard, angry, unfriendly. Adrian opened it. The tone of his voice changed instantly. Still calm, but colder. "Morning. How can I help you?" Mira slowly walked toward the hallway, peeking around the corner. Her stomach twisted when she saw two HOA officers standing at the door. Stern faces, stiff uniforms, clipboards in their hands. Behind them, three neighbors watched openly, whispering, judging. Gossip spreading like poison. Myra's breath caught. They were here. Because of her. The taller officer spoke first. "Mr. Cross, we received reports of a violation." Adrian didn't flinch. "What violation?" The officer lifted his clipboard. "You have brought a married woman into your home without HOA approval. This is a breach of community values." Mira felt her knees weaken. Married woman. The words stabbed her. Married? To a man who threw her out like trash? Adrian's eyes hardened. She was thrown out of her house. In the middle of the night. In a storm. The officer didn't even blink. Her personal issues do not change HOA rules. Mira swallowed her pain, feeling the humiliation rise again. She wanted to run back into the room, hide under the blanket, disappear. She had barely survived last night. Now the HOA stood at the door ready to push her further down. The shorter officer stepped forward. Where is she? We need to confirm her identity. Adrian moved subtly, blocking their view inside. She is resting, and she is safe. That's all you need to know. The officer's jaw tightened. Mr. Cross, we need to speak with her. No, Adrian said sharply. It was the first time Mira heard steel in his voice. Not after what she went through. The neighbors outside whispered loudly. Did she really run to him? Shameless woman. How fast she moved on. Destroying someone's marriage. Mira felt a hot wave of shame and anger rise in her chest. She wanted to scream that she did nothing wrong. She wanted to shout that she didn't run to anyone, that she was thrown out like she was worthless. But her voice stayed trapped inside her. The taller officer spoke again. Her husband, Damien Hale, informed us she abandoned her home and violated marriage code. He filed a complaint. We must act. Myra's breath hitched. He what? She whispered under her breath. Damien lied. Again. He was painting her as the villain. He was twisting the story to protect his reputation. Adrian looked back briefly at Mira. Their eyes met for a second, and the fire in his eyes shocked her. Not anger at her. Anger for her. He turned back to the officers. She didn't abandon her home. She was forced out. Do you have proof? The officer asked coldly. Mira flinched. Proof. Did anyone see? Did anyone record? No. HOA neighbors would never risk going against Damien. Adrian took a slow breath, voice low but powerful. She doesn't need proof. She needs humanity. The officer replied, HOA rules don't operate on humanity. Mira felt something inside her break. Again. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice but making it even more dangerous. Then your rules are wrong. The officers stiffened. HOA officers were never questioned. Not like this. Not by anyone, especially not a CEO. Mira watched in shock as Adrian continued. You will not interview her today. She is traumatized. Mr. Cross, you will not enter my property without a warrant. The officers exchanged glances. They had authority, but Adrian Cross was not just a homeowner. He was a man with influence, a name, a reputation bigger than their badges. They couldn't push too hard, not yet. The taller officer finally said, We will return, and if she stays here, you may face consequences. Adrian stepped back, voice like quiet thunder. I'll be waiting. The officers left reluctantly. The neighbors scattered like insects. Disappointed the drama ended early. The moment the door closed, Adrian turned around. His expression softening the second he looked at Mira. She felt tears burning her eyes. She hated herself for crying again. She hated feeling weak. But Adrian walked toward her slowly, stopping at a respectful distance. I'm sorry, he whispered. Mira shook her head quickly. Don't be. This isn't your fault. Adrian sighed softly. It didn't have to happen this way. Mira hugged herself, her voice cracking. Everyone believes I did something wrong. They always believe Damien. They shouldn't, Adrian said firmly. But they do, Mira whispered. Every time. She looked down at the floor, shame washing over her. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. Adrian took a step closer, speaking gently but with certainty. You didn't bring trouble. You brought the truth. The HOA hates truth. Mira wiped her tears, breathing hard. I should leave before they punish you. Adrian's expression tightened instantly. Mira, you leaving doesn't stop them. She froze. What do you mean? Adrian exhaled heavily, his voice low. Damien wants to destroy you. He won't stop until he blames you for everything. Your infertility, your marriage, your existence. Mira felt her chest twist painfully. She whispered, That's what he always did. Adrian nodded slowly. And the HOA will protect him unless someone stands for you. Mira stared at him, shocked that anyone, would say those words. Adrian continued, "You're not alone anymore. Not unless you want to be." Mira felt her heart beat faster. Not from romance, but from disbelief. Adrian stepped back, giving her space. "You can stay here," he said quietly. "For as long as you need." Myra's lips trembled. "Why?" Adrian looked at her with eyes full of something deep and unspoken. "Because no one stood for me when I needed it. I won't let you go through that alone." A long silence filled the room. Soft, heavy, emotional. Then Evan peeked in, rubbing his eyes sleepily. "Daddy, who is she?" Mira froze. Adrian gently placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "She's someone who needs our help." Evan smiled softly, innocent and pure. "Then we should help her." Myra's heart broke and healed at the same time. Adrian looked at Mira. "See? Even he understands." Mira couldn't speak. Her breath shook. Her eyes blurred. For the first time in her life, someone stood beside her. Someone believed her. Someone fought for her. Someone spoke her truth out loud. The fear wasn't gone. The HOA wasn't done. Damien wasn't done. But tonight, Adrian Cross became the first man who didn't look at her with disgust. And that alone began to change everything. The morning had barely settled in Adrian's home when Mira felt a strange heaviness in her chest, as if the house itself was warning her of something approaching. Evan sat beside her on the couch, drawing a picture with crayons. Simple shapes, a smiling sun, a stick-figure family. Mira watched him quietly. The child's presence warmed something frozen inside her. But that warmth was fragile, like a candle flame shaking inside stormy wind. Adrian was in the kitchen making breakfast. The soft clatter of pans, the smell of eggs, the calm way he moved. It felt unreal to Mira. For years, she had lived in a house where every sound meant danger. The slam of a door, the crack of a belt, the harsh voice calling her name. Here, even silence felt safe. But safety never lasted long in her life. A sharp knock exploded across the front door. Not gentle, not polite. A knock full of control, entitlement, and rage. Mira froze instantly. The crayon dropped from Evan's hand. Adrian stopped mid-step, his entire body turning rigid. He didn't need to look at the door to know who it was. The air inside the house shifted. The peace shattered. Adrian walked to the hallway with slow, controlled steps, but Mira could see the tension in his shoulders. She felt sick. Her breath began to shake. She whispered, "It's him." Adrian turned slightly toward her. "Stay here. Don't come near the door. Don't say a word." Mira nodded weakly, her entire body trembling. Evan moved closer to her, sensing the fear in her eyes. The knock came again, louder, more violent. Adrian opened the door, and there he stood, Damien Hale, Myra's husband, the man who threw her out, the man who called her useless, the man who blamed her for what she couldn't give him. Damien looked perfectly dry, perfectly dressed, perfectly angry. He carried the kind of rage only cowards carried, the rage built from losing control. His eyes immediately darted to the inside of the house, and when he saw Mira standing behind the couch, his lips curled into a cruel smile. "Well," he said loudly, "look at this." Adrian didn't move from the doorway. He stood tall, blocking Damien's view. "You need to leave." Damien ignored him and tried to step forward, but Adrian did not budge. His voice became sharp. "I said leave." Damien let out a bitter laugh. "You think you can stop me? She's my wife." Mira flinched hard. Adrian's jaw tightened. "She's a human being, not your property." Damien's smirk faded, replaced by venom. "She ran away from her home and her duties. She broke HOA rules. And she humiliated me." Mira squeezed the back of the couch so tightly her knuckles went white. She wanted to scream that she didn't run. She was thrown out, but her voice wouldn't come out. It never did around Damien. Damien raised his chin arrogantly. "She comes with me. Now." Adrian stepped fully into the doorway, blocking more than half the entrance. She is not leaving with you. Damien's voice rose, dripping with poison. She's my wife. Adrian's voice remained calm but firm. You threw her out. The moment you did that, she stopped being under your control. Damien's eyes narrowed dangerously. Watch your tone, Cross. I'm not scared of you. Adrian tilted his head slightly. You should be. Mira felt her heart pound. She had never seen someone stand up to Damien like this. Never. Damien tried to move forward again, but Adrian placed his palm on the door frame. Subtle, but a clear warning. Take one more step, Adrian said quietly, and you'll regret it. Damien stopped. For a moment there was silence. A battle of eyes. Ego. Power. Then Damien smirked again. That fake confident smirk Mira had suffered for years. I see what's going on, he said. You want her. Myra's stomach dropped. Adrian didn't react. Damien continued. She's infertile, Cross. She's useless. She can't give anyone a child. Mira felt tears burn behind her eyes. She looked down, feeling like her heart was being ripped apart. Adrian's entire face changed. Calm turned into ice. His voice cracked like glass. Don't talk about her like that. Damien scoffed. Why? It's the truth. She failed me as a wife. Mira covered her mouth, her breath shaking. Adrian finally stepped forward, not violently, just enough that Damien instinctively took a step back. His voice was low, deadly, controlled. She didn't fail you. Damien laughed loudly. You're defending her? Seriously. Adrian didn't blink. You failed her. Damien's laughter stopped. The words sliced straight through his pride. Adrian continued, his voice sharper than a knife. You abused her. You shamed her. You blamed her for something she didn't choose. Damien's fists tightened. Shut up. Adrian stepped even closer. You want to talk about truth? Let's talk about truth. You threw her out into a storm. Alone. Barefoot. And you have the audacity to stand here and act like the victim. Damien's face flushed with fear hidden behind anger. He didn't expect Adrian to know. He didn't expect anyone to speak the truth out loud. Then Damien's face twisted with a new kind of cruelty. She ran into another man's house the same night I threw her out. What does that say about her, Adrian? Myra's heart dropped. The humiliation stabbed her. But Adrian didn't even flinch. It says you pushed her into the night, he said firmly. And she found safety with someone who won't hurt her. Damien pointed a finger at Adrian. You think you're better than me? She's broken. She's empty. Mira gasped quietly at the word empty. A word she had heard many times. A word that made her feel like her body was nothing but pain. But then, Adrian stepped aside slightly so Damien could see her clearly. And he said the words in a voice so steady, so calm, so full of power. She is not broken. Myra's breath caught. Adrian continued. He didn't look at Mira, he looked directly at Damien. And even if she can't have children, she is worth more than you ever were. Damien's entire body stiffened. Evan peeked from behind the couch, watching in silence. Damien noticed him and sneered. Your son is watching, Cross. Is this the example you want to set? Adrian looked at Evan with gentle eyes. Yes. Then he turned back to Damien. He will learn how a real man treats a woman. Mira felt something hot burst inside her chest. Something painful. Something healing. Damien's voice rose again. She belongs to me. Adrian moved so fast it stunned everyone. He stepped fully out of the door and stood chest to chest with Damien. His voice dropped into a tone colder than ice. She never belonged to you. Damien shook with rage. We'll see what the HOA says about this. Adrian leaned forward slightly. Let them come. Damien sputtered with anger. I'll ruin you both. Adrian didn't blink. You already ruined yourself. Damien stepped back, breathing hard, his pride collapsing, his lies exposed by someone stronger. Knowing he had lost control, he spat out the last fragment of his power. This isn't over. Adrian replied quietly. It is. Damien turned sharply and left, slamming his car door, roaring away in humiliation. The house fell silent. Mira stood trembling, her breath broken, tears slipping down uncontrollably. Adrian shut the door slowly, then turned to look at her. His expression softened instantly. "Mira?" She shook her head, covering her face with her hands. "Why did you do that?" Adrian stepped closer, but still kept gentle distance. "Because you're not alone anymore." Mira cried harder, unable to hold the pain inside her chest. Adrian lowered his voice, softer than she'd ever heard from any man. "And I won't let him hurt you again." Mira looked up, her eyes full of disbelief and heartbreak. "No one has ever stood for me." Adrian's voice cracked slightly. "Then let me be the first." And in that moment, something shifted in the universe of her life. The past broke. The future opened, and her heart, broken for years, felt the first spark of hope. The house stayed silent long after Damien's car disappeared. Mira stood in the hallway with tears still drying on her cheeks, her breath uneven, her body shaking from everything that had happened. Adrian didn't touch her. He didn't rush to comfort her. He simply stood a few steps away, giving her space, letting her breathe, letting her cry without shame, something no one had ever allowed her before. Evan peeked out from behind the couch, his small face full of worry. He walked slowly to Mira, holding the crayon drawing he made earlier. He tugged her sleeve gently. "Are you sad?" Mira knelt down instinctively, surprised by his kindness. Her voice trembled a little. Evan looked down at his drawing, then held it out to her with both hands. "You can have this. It makes me feel better. Maybe it helps you too." Mira stared at the drawing, a simple picture of 3 stick figures holding hands. The middle one was smaller, Evan. The left one was tall, Adrian. The right one looked like her. Her throat tightened. Tears blurred her vision. She whispered, "Thank you." Evan smiled softly and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. A child's hug, warm, sincere, without judgment. She froze for a moment, then slowly hugged him back as her heart cracked open. Adrian watched them from the side, something deep and soft flickering in his eyes. After a moment, he cleared his throat gently. "Breakfast is ready," he said. Mira wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. I can help. Already made," Adrian said softly. "Just join us." Mira hesitated before sitting at the table. Adrian served Evan first, then gave Mira a plate. She kept her eyes down, uncomfortable with being cared for. Damien had made her believe she didn't deserve even the simplest kindness. But Adrian treated her like she mattered. Not because she was useful. Not because she could give him something. Simply because she was a human being. The breakfast felt quiet but warm. Evan chattered about school and his favorite cartoon. Mira listened, smiling weakly for the first time since last night. Adrian ate silently, sneaking glances at her to make sure she was okay. When the meal ended, Mira tried to stand and wash dishes. Adrian gently stopped her. "You don't need to do anything today." Mira shook her head. "I can't just sit. I've been a burden already." Adrian's expression tightened. "You're not a burden." Mira looked down, whispering, "That's not what I've heard for years." Adrian didn't push further, but his eyes softened with pain. For her, not at her. He stepped back and let her help with a small task, knowing she needed to feel useful after being torn apart. As she washed dishes, Evan brought toys to the table and played nearby. Every few minutes, he'd show Mira a dinosaur or a spaceship, excited for her reaction. She gave small smiles, soft responses, and each one made Evan grow more attached to her. Adrian watched from the living room doorway, arms crossed gently. He noticed something he hadn't seen in a long time. Evan laughing freely, without fear, without loneliness. His son had lived years without a mother. Mira wasn't replacing anyone, but her presence filled a quiet corner of their home that had been empty for a very long time. Hours passed. Myra's pain didn't disappear, but it slowly loosened its grip. She felt herself breathing easier, moving slower, feeling lighter. In the afternoon, she helped Evan build a small block tower. Evan sat close to her, his tiny hands stacking blocks with determination. "Don't let it fall, okay?" he said seriously. Mira smiled faintly. I'll try my best. Together they built a tall tower, and when it finally stood firm, Evan clapped. We did it. Yes, Mira whispered. We did. Adrian watched from a distance. A strange warmth spread in his chest as he saw his son happy, truly happy. Something inside him whispered that Mira wasn't just healing herself. She was healing them too. Later in the evening, after Evan napped and Mira helped fold blankets, Adrian approached her quietly. She looked nervous, as if expecting him to tell her she had overstayed her welcome. Instead, he spoke gently. How are you feeling? Mira took a breath. Tired, scared, embarrassed, she swallowed, but also safe. And I don't remember the last time I felt safe. Adrian nodded slowly. You deserve safety, Mira. She looked down, her fingers gripping the blanket tightly. I'm afraid the HOA will come again. Adrian's jaw hardened. They will. Mira's heart sank. And they will punish you because of me. Let them try, Adrian said firmly. She looked up at him, startled. Adrian took a step closer, his voice steady but full of emotion. I didn't help you last night out of pity. I helped you because what happened to you was wrong. And I won't let them or him hurt you again. Mira felt her eyes burn again. But why are you doing so much for me? Adrian paused. He looked down for a moment, searching for words. When he looked back up, his expression was raw, exposed in a way she had never seen from a man before. Because, he whispered, I know what it feels like when someone leaves you alone with your pain. Mira's heart clenched. She thought of the torn picture on his shelf, the missing face of his wife, the burden he had carried alone. She whispered, You've been lonely too, haven't you? Adrian gave a slow, sad nod. For a long time, a silence fell, heavy but gentle. Mira felt something deep and warm rise inside her. Not attraction, not romance, something more fragile, more painful. Two broken hearts recognizing each other in the quiet. Adrian exhaled softly. You're welcome to stay here, he said. For as long as you need. Mira's breath caught. But the HOA. I'll handle the HOA. Damien, Mira whispered shakily. Adrian's eyes hardened with a quiet fire. He won't touch you again. Mira lowered her gaze, tears slipping onto her hands. No one has ever protected me. Adrian responded softly. Then let me be the first. Mira felt a tear fall. But this one wasn't from pain. It was from relief. Adrian turned toward the living room, giving her space to breathe. Evan peeked around the corner with his blanket and whispered sleepily, Mira, will you stay forever? Mira covered her mouth with her hand as her heart cracked open. Adrian stepped forward quickly. Evan? But Mira whispered softly, her voice trembling, I'll stay, as long as I'm allowed. Evan smiled and hugged her leg. Adrian watched them, and something inside him shifted. A silent promise forming in his chest. Mira, Evan, and Adrian were three lonely hearts, and without realizing it, they were slowly becoming a family. But the HOA wasn't done. Damien wasn't done. And the peace in the house tonight was the calm before the next storm. The next morning arrived with a silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the stillness right before a storm breaks the sky open. Mira woke early, restless, unable to sleep for more than a few minutes. Every sound of the house made her jump. The hum of the fridge, the soft clink of a cup, even Evan giggling while playing with his crayons. Adrian noticed her unease immediately. She tried to hide it, but he could see the way her hands trembled when she poured water, the way her eyes darted to the window whenever someone walked outside, the way she stopped breathing every time a car passed by the house. Trauma had taught her to flinch before everything, noise, footsteps, voices. Adrian hated that. He hated that another man had carved fear so deep into her bones. When Adrian stepped outside to take a phone call, Mira quietly peeked from the curtains. She expected Damien's car. She expected neighbors staring. She expected HOA officers surrounding the house like guards. Nothing. Just quiet. Calm. But calm always scared her the most, because that's when everything usually went wrong. And it did. At noon, Just as Adrian was helping Evan with a puzzle, a loud knock exploded at the door. Not one, not two. Heavy, sharp, repeated like an attack. Mira froze instantly, her blood turning to ice. Evan looked up in fear. Adrian stood slowly, every inch of his body tightening. He already knew who it was. He opened the door. This time, 4 HOA officers stood there. Not 2, 4. Behind them, 3 board members waited with hard, cold eyes. Mrs. Harwick, Mr. Lennox, and the one everyone feared the most, Mr. Rowan. Rowan stepped forward, adjusting his tie with arrogance dripping from every gesture. Mr. Cross, we need to conduct a formal investigation inside your home. Adrian didn't move. No, Rowan smiled in a way that wasn't a smile at all. We weren't asking. Mira stood far behind Adrian, shaking uncontrollably. The officers pushed forward slightly. Adrian didn't step aside. His voice dropped into a deep warning. You enter without permission, you commit a crime. Rowan folded his arms. You brought a married woman into your home. That alone is a violation. Mira grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Another officer added, her husband filed a legal complaint. He says she ran away with another man. Mira felt her soul collapse. Damien had turned everything upside down. Again, Adrian's voice chilled. She didn't run away. She was forced out. Rowan smirked. Do you have proof? Footage? Witnesses? Written statements? Mira felt the world spinning. They were doing exactly what Damien always did. Twisting her truth, making her look guilty, making her feel small. Adrian stood firm. You won't speak to her. Rowan stepped closer. We will. And we will determine whether she is allowed to stay here. Myra's chest tightened. Allowed. She whispered the word to herself. As if she didn't even own her own life. As if she needed permission to exist. Adrian snapped. You're not questioning her. Rowan's eyes darkened. If you refuse, the HOA board can suspend you from the community, restrict your access to shared services, and file a legal claim for obstructing an investigation. Adrian didn't say anything. He just stared at Rowan with a dangerous silence that made the officers shift nervously. Rowan continued, your company may be contacted. Your reputation reviewed. Mira felt pain shoot through her chest. They weren't targeting just her now. They were targeting Adrian, his job, his home, his son's stability. And it was all her fault. Stop, Mira whispered shakily. Please stop. She stepped forward despite her trembling body. Adrian turned sharply. Mira, don't. But she shook her head. I can't let them hurt you. Rowan's eyes flickered with triumph when she stepped into view, like a predator who finally spotted his prey. Mrs. Hale, he said smoothly. We need to talk. Mira nodded weakly, her voice barely a breath. Okay. Adrian stepped forward instantly. No. You're not speaking to them alone. Rowan's smile sharpened. Very well. Then we'll interview both of you. Without waiting for permission, the officers walked inside. Adrian clenched his fists but didn't push physically. He couldn't risk violence with Evan watching. They sat in the living room. Evan hid behind Mira, grabbing her dress tightly. Rowan began. Mrs. Hale, your husband claims you abandoned your marital duties and left the home willingly. Mira shook instantly. That's a lie. He threw me out. Rowan's expression didn't change. Did anyone witness this? Myra's throat closed. No. Any video footage? No. Any recordings of the argument? No. Rowan leaned back with a satisfied look. Then your claim is unverified. Mira felt her heart break a little more. You're not listening. We listen to evidence, not emotions. Adrian slammed his palm on the table suddenly. Everyone jumped. His voice came low, controlled, deadly. She's telling the truth. Rowan didn't look intimidated. And you, Mr. Cross, have interfered in a marital dispute. Adrian's jaw flexed. I saved her life. From her husband? Rowan scoffed. Not likely. Mira felt tears rising. Her voice cracked. Why are you all protecting him? Why do my words mean nothing? Rowan leaned forward. Because your husband is a respected HOA member. And you are a problem. Adrian moved so fast the officers stepped back. She is not a problem. Rowan smirked. She is if she damages the community image. Mira felt her chest collapse. I didn't do anything, Rowan continued. You caused a scene. You moved into another man's home. What do you expect us to think? Mira covered her mouth, tears spilling. Adrian's voice erupted. You expect her to stay outside and die in the rain? Rowan shrugged. She made her choice. Adrian grabbed Rowan by the collar before anyone could react. Officers rushed forward, shouting. Mira screamed, Adrian, please. Adrian froze only because her voice cracked with pain. He released Rowan slowly, eyes burning with fury. Rowan straightened his shirt smugly. One more act of aggression, and we file charges. Adrian said nothing, but the rage in his silence filled the room like fire. Rowan ended the meeting with a cold verdict. Mrs. Hale will be required to return to her house for questioning. If she refuses, she may be removed from this community permanently. Myra's breath left her body. Removed. Again. Thrown out. Again. Adrian stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. Rowan smirked. Then we will force her. Evan began crying softly. Mira held him tightly, her tears falling onto his hair. Rowan gestured to the officers. We will return tonight. She must comply. They left. The door slammed. Silence fell like a heavy weight. Mira collapsed onto the couch, shoulders shaking uncontrollably. They're going to throw me out again. Adrian, I don't want to go back. I can't. Adrian knelt in front of her, his voice low but trembling with emotion. Mira, look at me. She lifted her tear-filled eyes. Adrian's voice broke. I won't let them take you. Mira sobbed harder. They'll take your house, your job, everything. Adrian shook his head. Let them try. Mira grabbed his shirt with trembling hands. Why are you risking everything for me? Adrian looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes soft, warm, full of something deep and unspoken. Because you deserve someone who finally stands for you. Myra's tears fell endlessly. Adrian whispered, and I'm not stopping. Not now. Not ever. But outside the house, HOA cars waited at the corner. And Damien's black sedan slowly pulled up, headlights glowing like a threat. The biggest war hadn't even begun yet. Evening arrived with a dark sky that felt heavy, almost warning the world of what was about to happen. Mira sat on the edge of the couch, her hands shaking, her heart beating painfully in her chest. Evan sat beside her, holding her fingers like he was trying to protect her with his tiny hands. Adrian paced near the window, watching every passing car with sharp eyes. He knew what was coming. He had felt it all day. Hate, judgment, HOA power, Damien's poisonous pride. He knew something inside Mira was breaking each minute they waited. And he hated that he couldn't take that pain away. Suddenly headlights flashed outside. 3 HOA cars stopped in front of the house. And behind them, Damien's black sedan rolled in slowly, like a predator finding its prey. Mira felt her chest tighten so hard she couldn't breathe. They're here, she whispered. Adrian immediately stepped in front of her like a shield. They're not taking you. Evan hugged her tightly, whispering, Don't go. Mira kissed the top of his head with trembling lips. I don't want to. A loud knock hit the door. Adrian opened it, this time without fear, without hesitation, without allowing even an inch of weakness. Rowan, Mrs. Harwick, and 2 officers stood outside. Damien stood behind them, arms crossed, eyes full of victory. Rowan didn't bother hiding his authority. Mrs. Hale, he said loudly. You are required to step out for HOA questioning. Mira shook her head instantly. No, I'm not going with him. Damien smirked. You don't have a choice. Adrian stepped forward, blocking the entrance. She's not stepping anywhere with you. Rowan's voice hardened. Mr. Cross. Move. Adrian didn't. His body stood like a wall. I'm not letting you take her. Rowan signaled the officers. 2 of them stepped forward to grab Mira. Evan screamed, clinging to her. Don't touch her. Adrian raised his voice for the first time. Deep, powerful, shaking the entire room. Don't touch her. The officers stopped. Rowan glared. Mr. Cross, if you interfere again, you will be arrested for obstruction. Then arrest me, Adrian said calmly. Because I'm not moving. Damien laughed cruelly. Look at him acting like her hero. She's worthless. She can't even give a man a child. Mira bent over, that sentence slicing into her like a blade. Her hands flew to her mouth to stop the sob that tried to escape. Adrian turned slowly, and something inside him snapped. His voice dropped into a tone that made even the officers flinch. Say that again. Damien smirked wider. She's infertile. Broken. Useless. Mira broke. Tears rushed out of her eyes uncontrollably. She felt smaller than ever. But Adrian didn't look away from Damien. He walked forward until they stood face to face. You want to talk about truth? Adrian said, voice shaking with controlled rage. Fine. Let's talk about truth. Damien frowned. Rowan narrowed his eyes. The officers shifted. Adrian reached into a drawer by the door. Mira froze. She knew that drawer. She had seen Adrian place a sealed envelope there earlier that day. He pulled it out now and held it in front of Damien. You think she's broken? Adrian said. You think she's the problem? Damien scoffed. Of course she is. No, Adrian said, voice cutting like a blade. You are. And he opened the envelope. Mira gasped softly. Damien's face lost its color. Inside were medical reports. Not hers. His. Damien's name on every page. Male infertility. Not female. Damien was the one who could never have a child. Adrian stepped closer, holding the papers in Damien's face. This is the truth. You blamed her for years for something that was your condition. Rowan's eyes widened. Mrs. Harwick gasped. The officers exchanged shocked looks. Damien's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked like someone had ripped the ground from under him. Adrian didn't stop. You destroyed her self-worth. You abused her. You threw her out. And all this time, Adrian held the report up higher. You were the one hiding your failure. Mira covered her mouth, her whole body shaking in disbelief. Damien tried to grab the papers, but Adrian snatched them away. Don't you dare, Adrian growled. Not after everything you did. Rowan stepped forward, staring at the documents. Is this authentic? Adrian handed them over. Verify it. Mrs. Harwick took out her tablet, scanning quickly. In seconds, her eyes widened. It's real. Damien's face twisted in panic. This is private medical information. You can't. Adrian cut him off. You used HOA power to destroy her, to humiliate her, to throw her out, to smear her name. So don't talk to me about privacy. Rowan looked at Damien with disgust. You lied to the HOA? Blamed your wife for your own condition. Damien sputtered. I had to. My reputation is gone, Adrian said. Now the truth is out. The officers took a step back from Damien, their respect for him dissolving instantly. Mrs. Harwick shook her head. Mr. Hale, you will be removed from the HOA board until further notice. Damien's eyes widened. What? You can't. Rowan crossed his arms. You manipulated the HOA for personal revenge. That is grounds for suspension. Damien lunged forward suddenly, pointing at Mira. She ruined my life. Adrian stepped between them in a heartbeat. If you come one step toward her again, you're done. Damien froze. Something in Adrian's eyes told him it wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Rowan cleared his throat. Mrs. Hale, our earlier judgment was based on false information. You are not required to return to your home. Mira gasped, tears falling freely. I'm not. No, Rowan said reluctantly. You are free to stay wherever you choose. Mira looked at Adrian. He looked at her. Something passed between them. Something soft, deep, powerful. Damien shouted, She's my wife. Adrian turned to him slowly. She was your prisoner. Now she's free. Damien lunged again, but two officers grabbed him. Let go of me. Let go. They dragged him toward the car as he kicked and screamed. Rowan and the board left quietly in embarrassment. The door closed. Silence swallowed the house. Mira collapsed onto the floor, crying uncontrollably, the truth finally freeing her heart after years of torture. Evan crawled into her lap, hugging her. Adrian knelt beside her, voice trembling with emotion. It's over, Mira. She shook her head, sobbing harder. Why did you do all this for me? Adrian hesitated. His voice broke quietly. Because no one ever fought for me, and I won't let the same thing happen to you. Mira covered her face, overwhelmed. Adrian gently touched her hand. Not pulling, not holding, just touching, like asking permission. She didn't pull away. He whispered, You can stay here. Not because you need shelter, but because you deserve peace. Mira looked up slowly, her voice shaking. You want me to stay? Adrian nodded softly. Evan hugged her tighter. Please stay, forever? Mira cried again, but this time, they were tears of relief, tears of freedom, tears of finally being seen as a human being. She whispered, voice trembling but full of truth. Yes, I'll stay. Adrian closed his eyes for a moment, like he was releasing years of loneliness. He whispered back, Then you're home now. And for the first time in Myra's entire life, she believed those words of a broken woman, a lonely father, a child searching for warmth. They weren't three separate stories anymore. They were one at a new beginning, a real family. Born not from blood, but from courage.